I'm different than other presidents. I'm a deal maker. I make great deals.
If you can't make a good deal with a politician, then there's something wrong with you. That's the sign of a deal maker. When you can take something that's a disaster and make it better than if things stayed good.
The third and final part of the non-tank battle for Oarai's future is the big one. It's where the big moves are made, the best deals are struck, and the stage is set for one of the greatest battles in any piece of visual media. So let's get right into it. This week's video is brought to you by my upcoming original manga, Amaranth Angels. 3 anime girls, starfighters, and exciting space battles in a fun space adventure. If you enjoy Girls und Panzer and other military moe anime and manga, you'll love this too. The full first volume will be out this year, and they now have a pre-order store live for anyone who missed the Kickstarter campaign. Now, on to the video. There are actually a few things going on here in this sequence of scenes, covering just over 10 minutes or so of the movie's length, which, at first glance, might not seem directly related, but it is all woven together into a greater whole as things accelerate into the resolution of this battle and the start of the tank battle. Obviously, spoilers ahead, so be warned. We of course pick up right where we left off, moving from the Boco Museum and its symbolism of Oarai's determination to fight against seemingly insurmountable odds, to seeing Oarai's champion and representative doing just that. Anzu has gone right to the home of the snake, tanking his office himself to begin the fight. And as is often the case in negotiations, however, the response to her case for Oarai remaining open is essentially no. But Anzu knows how to handle this guy. Trying to argue or plead is not going to work, so she immediately moves on.
You have to be prepared to walk.
The scene back at the Oarai compound could seem like a distraction from that, but it's an important reminder of what's at stake. Additionally, and probably more important, it's a reminder that Oarai and its student council are a team. Anzu was able to go off seeking a path forward, a better deal for Oarai, because she knows that Yuzu and Momo could hold the fort and do the job of taking care of the students. This is the very emotional, overly stressed Momo remaining calm and professional despite her feelings, as Yuzu notes, because the chips are down, and she's not going to buckle here. And while they deal with the students, Anzu, now with the first of her Infinity Stones as backup, is eyeing her next target. It's no surprise that Chono Ami, who trained Oarai back in Season 1, is eager to take up their cause, and she's got some pull, via her position, to apply pressure on the head of Mixed. Unlike Tankery, this guy isn't really an enemy. He's actually just a bureaucrat and a Sensho enjoyer, trying to make the best decisions for the sport as a whole, and a bit of a pushover if we're being honest. He's also clearly at least somewhat sympathetic to Oarai's plight, but it's obviously not a priority for him. But because he does care about the sport, and the reputation of the organization, etc., this is Japan after all, he's vulnerable to their arguments. And Anzu and Ami are both clever enough to see the opening, and like any good, aggressive tanker, they go for it. You can almost see the light bulb go off as Anzu processes the new info and devises a plan of action. Pro League, scouting for contestants. The next steps are clear. As for what's next, though, we're left in the dark for a bit for another diversion, but also one that is inherently linked to this battle, and a key subtext of the entire show thus far. That being Miho's visit home. We already know why this is a stressful moment for her, and despite her positive moments with Maho after their final match in Season 1, she's understandably nervous about how she'll be received, especially by her mother. That's why there's the emphasis on her being alone, on her trip there and as she arrives. But she's not really alone. Maho gives her a warm welcome home, and lies when questioned about the visitor, to ensure Miho doesn't need to interact with Shiho. We'll get back to the Nishizumi matriarch in a minute though, but for now, it's important here, as we approach the climactic battle, not that Miho knows of it yet, to establish that Miho and Maho's bond is as strong as it ever was.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
Like the concept of Boco, this silent flashback scene to Miho and Maho's childhood probably deserved its own dedicated video eventually. But for now, this whole sequence at the Nishizumi estate pulls double duty, as it, quite literally, leads directly into the next phase of Anzu's plan, as, shortly after Miho leaves, Ami arrives, by helicopter. Because how else would you expect someone like her, and possibly Anzu, even though we don't see her directly meeting with Shiho personally, would travel? Returning to Shiho for a moment, we know from the end of Season 1 that she definitely has some measure of respect for Miho's new approach to Senshiro, though they clearly have yet to reconcile, and this is reinforced later on. However, it is likely, based on the scenes after Miho arrived, that Shiho knew, despite Maho's little fib, that Miho was in fact the visitor, and she definitely realized that Miho was there after receiving the little gift she brought her. So it makes one wonder if Miho was more worried than she needed to be, or whether Shiho herself is uncertain how to try and repair her relationship with her younger daughter. Almost like a tsundere thing, where she really does care but can't bring herself to be open about it, or to admit she made a mistake before. But as we'll soon see, she's absolutely on Miho's side right now. And, while Maho clearly implied that she forged Shiho's signature, part of me does wonder,
Did Shiho actually sign it and just ask Maho not to say? After all, we don't see it signed, and Maho never explicitly gives us an explanation, so I kind of like that theory a little bit. After all, there's no reason for her to refuse to sign, unless she specifically really wanted Miho back in Koromori Mine. Back to the main plot, though, it doesn't take much convincing on Ami's part to get Shiho on board with the mission. Shiho, in her kind of tsundere fashion, states that she wants Oarai around just so Koromori Mine can defeat them. But I'm sure there's more to it than that. After all, Miho is still Nishizumi, so there is family pride and honor on the line. What matters most, though, of course, is that she's in. And now Anzu has the last of her metaphorical Infinity Stones. Then we get to the key part of this segment of the movie, the primary confrontation with Tankeri, where Anzu shows us that she's a master of the art of the deal. And you can see that our boy here is feeling the pressure really early on. I mean, who wouldn't, with an angry Shiho Nishizumi staring them down? She, like Anzu and Ami did earlier with the Sensho Federation guy, tie the Oarai situation with Japan's plans for the World Tournament, and what damage shutting down last year's champion school would have on that. He definitely knows the logic is sound, but he also can't admit a mistake. Can't let himself lose face by changing his mind after all this. So he makes an irrational argument, and his first mistake. Even if Shiho did believe that luck played a part in Sensho's success, you just know she was never going to accept the idea that her chosen school lost for that reason. And indeed, we know that claiming Oarai won through sheer luck is kind of retarded.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
And now Tankeri has a pissed off Shiho Nishizumi to deal with. And in typical Nishizumi fashion, she takes the initiative and presses him, at the moment where he's just been knocked back, to suggest a way to resolve this for Oarai to prove itself. And in his intimidated state, he makes his second mistake, which gives Anzu and Shiho the opening they needed. Our girl Anzu is ready to pounce, almost literally. The guy gets basically no chance to add any additional qualifiers to back out or anything. And given the look on his face at the end of the scene, he's basically folded completely. Like the spineless political stooge that he is.
I'm kind of retarded.
Things then flow into the next scene, starting the setup for the battle itself. Pushing that along as Shiho personally meets with Chiyo Shimada, Alice's mother, and we learn Chiho's rival, to inform her of the match. Basically, we've now got two tiger moms pitting their talented daughters against each other. It also again speaks to Shiho's respect for Miho, given that she is, in a way, risking her family reputation on this, since Chiyo at least certainly sees this as a chance to beat her rival. So despite Shiho's issues with Miho, she is still family, at least in this context, and worthy of support. But the main point here is seeing that the quote-unquote other side has something to fight for as well. They aren't just a faceless villain for Oarai to fight. Remember that in Sensho and in Girls und Panzer, the only villain is the government. Just like in real Same deal when we cut to Alice, in a scene that both gives us a brief demonstration of just how good she and her team are, and shows us what she's fighting for. Her mom's promise to sponsor and therefore save the Boco Museum. Given how in the last video I talked about how the Boco Museum was a kind of direct parallel for Oarai right now, this makes it extra interesting, and adds another link between Miho and Alice. Both are fighting to save something they love, something that is struggling to fight against overwhelming odds. They really didn't have to add this much subtext for a movie about girls and tanks battling, but they did, and it's so much better for it. The little Boco that Alice talks to directly here is also the one Miho gave her a few scenes back, which further solidifies that link. The two tiger moms are seeking victory by proxy to satisfy their honor and desires, while their more kind-hearted daughters, who appreciate the underdogs, are fighting for noble causes. Though of course it doesn't mean the moms are bad people, as we've seen with Shiho, and we'll sort of see with Chiyo later on. From here we get into the rest of the setup for the battle. Momo, struggling under the literal weight of everyone else on her shoulders, finally gets to let everything out when Anzu returns, giving us a wholesome moment, as well as some comedy as she's sobbing over the loudspeaker while Yuzu calls the Sensho team to assemble. And we get some fun little moments here of what they've been up to, specifically that the anteaters have actually gotten buff, and that the rabbits kind of went feral. And of course we get the ultimate role reversal with Mako being the one to fetch the depression maxing mallards when they don't show up. Though this funny scene does get a little bit of a wholesome moment as well. Now it's finally time for the big announcement that Oarai does have one potential path to salvation. As you might expect, the girls are ecstatic over this news. All apart from two, that is. They expand more on it shortly after, but this little look that Miho and Yukari exchange says all we need to know. They're the most up-to-date on competitive Senshido here, and therefore they're well aware of just how good the university team is, even though they don't know who exactly the commander is yet. They know this is going to be a very, very challenging fight. But this time there is a hard guarantee that the school will be saved if they win. And there's a nice little callback here as they confirm that the student council is being completely transparent this time. However, as has been the story for this fight all along, it doesn't take that much time until the momentum shifts once again. This time we go from the excitement and elation of the chance to save Oarai to the realization of just how badly the odds are going to be stacked against them. 30 against 8 is just downright unfair. And another reminder that while Tankery was outmaneuvered earlier, he is now playing his cards as best he can to ensure that he keeps to his word, technically speaking, while twisting things in his favor. Yes, Oarai gets that match, and he'll have to keep his promise if they win. So he just needs to make sure it's impossible for them to win. Also, it's worth noting here that back in the museum stage play, Boco was outnumbered 3-1. And here, Oarai is similarly outnumbered. Like I mentioned there, he didn't have quite enough support to win. But with some more... Fittingly, while Momo was already starting to despair here, Miho looks as determined as ever to find a way to win. It's what Boco would try and do, after all. Even though she knows that logically, it's very unlikely. And as Miho gives her impromptu speech about pressing forward no matter what, very Nishizumi of her, by the way, we're also shown how serious they all take this by getting our first glimpse of Nekonya's eyes through her glasses. Here, she's not a silly, somewhat weird gamer. She's a tank commander just like the others. Almost mirroring good soldiers in real life who might be goofballs during downtime, knowing to shut that down and get to business. But things only get worse from here, when they learn that this is also an annihilation match, making the numbers disparity even more unfair. Not to mention the fact that the university team is more experienced and with better tanks. Tankery does it all in his slimy, passive-aggressive way too, acting all formal, matter-of-fact, but you could feel the condescending smug that makes him the most punchable person in this show by far.
I just want to talk to him.
Dad, this is ridiculous!
I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to shoot him. I just want to talk to him.
You can't shoot him!
Wait, what? What are you doing?
This part of the battle then concludes as everyone makes their final preparations. The little montage of the teams each preparing in their own way honestly feels more like something out of a war film, where the men, knowing there's a good chance they won't survive the coming battle, each prepare what could be their last moments, quietly, calmly. Oarai's members aren't eating tonkatsu this time, a food that has some symbology relevant to good luck and victory. This time they know they're almost certain to lose, but they still plan to make the most of it. And as Miho surveys the battleground, just as a real wartime commander might, she has a nice little moment with her leadership counterpart, Anzu. Anzu is more sensitive now to the pressure she's putting on Miho, and even leaves open the option to withdraw. But as we've already seen, Miho is determined. As she says, withdrawal guarantees they lose. Even with the terrible odds, fighting it out gives them at least a tiny chance. Plus, it is one more chance to fight a match together as a team. So even if they lose, they at least get this. Now, there is a little bit more to go before the battle properly begins, of course. However, it's an important enough couple of scenes to warrant its own video. Both because of what it means for this movie, and just as a scene on its own to visual media in general. So look forward to that next time. If you enjoyed this video and like to support me and what I do here, my books and light novels are all available on Amazon. And you can get early access to videos, sneak peeks, and updates on upcoming military mori manga and other projects by subscribing over on Patreon. I also offer channel memberships which get you access to monthly members-only watch-along streams, in which we're currently watching Space Battleship Yamato. And as always, if you have any thoughts on this video or is anything Girls on Panzer related you'd like me to talk about, definitely share them in the comments section below. I'd love to hear them, and while I might not get to respond to every comment, at least not in a timely manner, I can guarantee that I read each of them. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell, so you don't miss any future uploads. That's all for now, so until next time.